Hello warriors. We must be aware of the fact that the world, in its raw and unfiltered form, is not designed for kindness, fairness, or morality. From the moment we are born, we are thrust into a system that rewards strength, cunning, and ruthlessness while punishing vulnerability, trust, and compassion. Life, in its most basic sense, is survival, and survival is not kind. It does not care about our intentions, our good deeds, or our fragile ideals of justice. The universe is indifferent, society is often cruel, people, driven by self-interest, exploit every weakness they find. If one enters the world expecting it to be gentle, expecting reciprocity for good deeds, or fairness in treatment, one will inevitably be broken. The world does not break people gently, it grinds them down, sometimes slowly, sometimes violently, until what remains is either hardened or shattered entirely. Throughout history, countless examples show this brutal truth. Consider the life of a soldier in ancient times, forced to fight for kings he had never met, risking death for the whims of rulers who cared nothing for his well-being. Or look at the stories of political prisoners, intellectuals, and innovators crushed under the weight of oppressive regimes, not because they were weak in talent or character, but because they refused to conform, because their morals or ideals conflicted with the survival strategies of those around them. Even in modern life, where violence is less direct, the same principle applies. Workplaces exploit kindness, friendships betray trust, markets and systems reward aggressiveness and cunning, and those who remain soft are trampled. This harsh reality is not pessimism, it is observation. There is no moral judgment in stating that the world is cruel. Nature itself is impartial. Predators do not pause out of empathy for the prey, natural selection does not reward the virtuous but the adaptable. Humanity, despite its veneer of civilization, continues this pattern. In business, in politics, in social interactions, those who fail to protect themselves and their interests are exploited. Those who are too trusting, too compassionate, too accommodating, are often left in ruins. And yet, society perpetuates myths that goodness alone will shield individuals, that honesty guarantees fairness, and that kindness is a virtue universally rewarded. These are illusions. Dangerous illusions. Human psychology explains part of this phenomenon. Humans are wired for social bonding, empathy, and cooperation. From infancy, we are conditioned to trust, to seek approval, and to value connection. These traits were essential for survival in small, tight-knit communities. But in the vast, impersonal, competitive world of modern society, these very traits become liabilities. Empathy makes one exploitable. Compassion makes one a target. A desire to be liked or loved can be manipulated. This is not a flaw in the individual but a structural reality. The world operates on incentives that often oppose moral virtues. Consider, for instance, the workplace. An employee who consistently goes above and beyond out of genuine goodwill often becomes the default choice for extra work, unpaid labor, or blame when things go wrong. Their initial acts of kindness, meant to build goodwill or relationships, rapidly recalibrate the expectations of those around them. What was once noticed, appreciated, or rewarded becomes the baseline. Gratitude fades, and the same generosity that once inspired respect now invites exploitation. The soft-hearted worker becomes a tool, a resource drained of energy, and eventually, resentment or burnout sets in. The world, in this sense, teaches a harsh lesson: softness, left unprotected, is vulnerable. Even in personal relationships, the lesson is similar. People form bonds, trust, and love, hoping that their care will be reciprocated. At first, they are cherished, their generosity elicits admiration. But human adaptation is rapid. What once felt extraordinary becomes ordinary. The kindness that drew respect can be taken for granted, the attention that once delighted can be expected. In more insidious cases, the vulnerable are manipulated, gaslighted, or betrayed precisely because they are too willing to give, too willing to forgive, too trusting. Emotional intelligence alone cannot protect someone who has not developed the defenses necessary for survival in a world that is not always fair or kind. The evidence is all around us. Individuals who fail to cultivate such resilience are often broken by circumstances, bullied at school, manipulated in relationships, betrayed by colleagues, or ruined financially and socially. Conversely, those who embrace a form of calculated toughness, strategic, ethical when possible, ruthless when necessary, tend to survive and even thrive. They are not loved universally, they are not universally admired. But they are feared, respected, and above all, unbroken. Survival itself becomes a form of power, and power, in turn, affords the ability to act in alignment with one's will rather than the whims of others. Ultimately, the world does not seek to break you personally, it does not single out individuals. It simply rewards adaptation and punishes vulnerability. To survive, one must cultivate an inner strength that is often described as monstrous precisely because it diverges from conventional expectations of morality, softness, or emotional openness. To walk through life expecting universal fairness is to guarantee disappointment and suffering. To navigate the world wisely is to accept that a certain level of hardness, detachment, and strategic ruthlessness is necessary. Only by embracing this reality can one ensure that the world does not break them, and only then can one thrive, not merely survive. The realization of human weakness is terrifying but necessary. To remain soft in a world that preys on kindness, trust, and vulnerability is to invite destruction. Once this truth is internalized, the path forward becomes clear, survival demands transformation. To endure without being broken, one must become a monster, not in the sense of mindless cruelty, but in the sense of cultivating resilience, strategic ruthlessness, and emotional invulnerability. This is the armor of the modern human, a psychological metamorphosis that allows one to navigate life without being crushed by its relentless pressures. The definition of the monster. What does it mean to become a monster? It does not mean abandoning morality entirely. It does not mean seeking to harm others gratuitously or living as a sadistic predator. Rather, it is a strategic state of being. A monster is someone who cannot be easily manipulated, recognizes emotional triggers and maintains control over reactions. Protects their energy and resources, does not allow others to drain or exploit them. Acts decisively, makes hard choices without hesitation when survival or goals are at stake. Balances morality and strategy, maintains principles internally but does not allow them to be used as weapons against themselves. This type of monster is, in essence, a human refined by experience, trauma, and observation, a person who has learned to exist in the world on their own terms, unshaken by manipulation, deceit, or cruelty. The first step, awareness and acceptance. Transformation begins with awareness. One must confront the uncomfortable truth: the world is not designed to protect the weak. Accepting this reality is the first act of strength. It is the acknowledgement that kindness alone will not safeguard life, that trust is a calculated risk, and that morality, while valuable, is not armor. Acceptance does not harden the heart prematurely, it prepares the mind for adaptation. Denial, conversely, ensures vulnerability. By recognizing the world's indifference, one lays the foundation for cultivating the monster within. Building psychological armor. The cornerstone of monstrosity is emotional resilience. Psychological armor protects the mind from manipulation, disappointment, and exploitation. It involves 1. Detachment, learning to separate emotions from outcomes. This does not mean apathy, it means controlling emotional investment. One may act with empathy or generosity, but does not allow personal suffering to be dictated by the behavior of others. 2. Boundaries, defining what is acceptable and what is not. Emotional, financial, and social boundaries prevent others from overstepping and taking advantage. The monster knows when to say no, when to withdraw, and when to enforce limits. 3. Discipline, cultivating self-control over impulses, reactions, and desires. The undisciplined person reacts to every provocation. The monster chooses responses strategically, conserving energy for battles that matter. 4. Selective vulnerability, understanding that vulnerability is not inherently weakness but a tool. A monster reveals weakness only when it serves a purpose, deception, strategy, or trust building with those who have earned it. Ruthlessness is not a license for mindless aggression, it is an application of power with awareness and foresight. A monster does not act blindly, they calculate, anticipate, and strike with precision. Emotional mastery. Another hallmark of the monster is mastery over emotion. Emotional mastery does not mean absence of feeling, it means controlling the effect of feelings on behavior. Anger, fear, love, and compassion are powerful tools, but they are double-edged. Uncontrolled, they create vulnerability. Controlled, they become instruments of strategy. Anger can motivate, intimidate, or protect. Fear, recognized and managed, it sharpens awareness and prevents reckless actions. Empathy, selectively applied, it builds alliances and garners loyalty. Love and attachment, managed carefully, these emotions are not weaknesses but motivators and strategic investments. The monster internalizes emotional intelligence to a degree that ordinary humans cannot. They anticipate manipulation, resist emotional blackmail, and project composure even in extreme circumstances. The role of fearlessness. Fear is the chain that binds most humans. The monster is fearless, not in the sense of lacking caution, but in the sense of understanding risk and choosing action over paralysis. Fearless individuals embrace uncertainty, confront challenges head-on, and refuse to be immobilized by the prospect of pain, loss, or failure. This is not recklessness, it is a form of power. Fearlessness signals to others that one cannot be easily intimidated, and it ensures that the monster is always several steps ahead of those relying on fear to dominate. Adapting morality for survival. A crucial distinction in becoming a monster is the selective application of morality. Pure moral adherence can be a liability if it is rigid or naive. The monster maintains an internal code but is pragmatic in its application. They act ethically when it serves long-term goals. They manipulate morality when necessary to protect themselves. They distinguish between moral choices that are personal and those dictated by society. This adaptability ensures survival without complete moral compromise. The monster understands that morality is often a tool rather than an absolute shield. Training the mind. The transformation into a monster requires deliberate mental training. Strategies include 1. Observation and learning, studying human behavior, identifying patterns of manipulation, and understanding social dynamics. 2. Simulation and anticipation, mentally rehearsing difficult situations and responses to prevent being caught off guard. 3. Self-reflection, examining past failures, recognizing personal vulnerabilities, and correcting destructive habits. 4. Stoic practice, embracing discomfort, adversity, and uncertainty to build mental fortitude. Through consistent practice, the individual begins to operate on a level above ordinary humans, anticipating moves, neutralizing threats, and protecting themselves from exploitation. The monster as protector. It is important to recognize that the monster is not only a tool for offense but for defense. It is the psychological shield that ensures kindness, generosity, and morality are preserved internally while preventing these traits from becoming weapons used against the individual. The monster allows humans to act from choice, not compulsion, from strategy, not vulnerability. In essence, the monster is a guardian of the self, a transformation that ensures that external cruelty, manipulation, and exploitation cannot destroy what is valuable inside. Case studies and examples. Consider individuals who embody this principle. Historical leaders like Genghis Khan or Catherine the Great combined ruthlessness with strategic intelligence, creating legacies that outlasted their adversaries. Modern business leaders have often had to make morally ambiguous choices to protect their companies and themselves, balancing ethical principles with survival instincts. Survivors of extreme adversity, whether escaping oppression, surviving war, or enduring betrayal, frequently report that only by cultivating an inner hardness and strategic ruthlessness did they survive and thrive. These cases illustrate that becoming a monster is not about cruelty for its own sake but about cultivating the skills necessary to remain unbroken in a world that rewards strength and punishes softness. The human weakness. Human beings are, at their core, vulnerable creatures. This vulnerability is not only physical but deeply psychological. From birth, humans are conditioned to trust, to seek approval, to obey social norms, and to believe in fairness. These traits, essential in close-knit communities for survival, become liabilities in a broader, competitive, and often ruthless world. Our very nature, designed for cooperation, empathy, and moral alignment, can be exploited by those who recognize weakness, naivety, or an unwillingness to confront harsh realities. Remember, the world is ruthless. It does not reward kindness, empathy, or morality, only strength, strategy, and resilience. If you remain soft, the world will break you. Learn why human weakness makes you vulnerable, and discover how to awaken the monster within. This is not about being evil, it's about survival, psychological mastery, and becoming unstoppable.